What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Range Rover. You're inside my car. We're headed to the Harrisburg, North Carolina gym. This is Mike Hartshorn, Andrea Hartshorn's gym. They have two gyms, one in Concord and one in Harrisburg. And yeah, we have like 27 minutes to kill on the way there. So I asked Isaiah, I was like, "What's on your mind, dude?" Isaiah's in the car with me, and
What's up?
my sidekick. We're hustling together. We've been all over the world. the last year together, the last week even, we've been all over the U.S. from Salt Lake City, coming back home to Charlotte, flying back out to Michigan, having a quick little Sunday afternoon recovery. We have a suite down at the Charlotte Knights AAA affiliate for the Chicago White Sox. So if you guys know anything about me, you know I like spending time either at Burn or at the ballpark, and so. Yeah, we've been getting after it. There's no other way I'd rather have it, though. It's like, that's how I stay patient. You know, Isaiah, I was like, "What's on your mind?" He's like, just how do you sustain growth as someone who's young, hungry, or someone who's not young, someone who's just hungry in general. How do you sustain that like desire, that ambition? Because all of our desires, our ambitions are bigger than tomorrow, and so we have to wake up and we have to conquer tomorrow. You know, a lot of people language have to wake up and go through it tomorrow. Well, I just get the opportunity every day to breathe this fresh air that we have, and I'm grateful for that. And I think it's a conversation around just patience and urgency. I talk about this a lot. When you have a lot of ambition and it's a big goal, it's not going to happen tomorrow, right? So being able to deploy patience, but then if you tell people like me, be patient, I'm gonna tell you like, well, can we be patient faster? and so that's where urgency comes in. It's like you're patient in the long run with your big goals, because you're gonna have to like take some time to get yourself there. But the urgency part of it is like, I'm gonna wake up today. Hey, if we're going to Harrisburg right now to go do take one, I'll train one, and then we'll do a Q&A with the members afterward and just pour into them. I've got to attack this site visit with rigor, with urgency, with care, like, in every step forward, within that day has to be an urgent step forward with purpose and with meaning. And I think when you take that concept and then you layer in what I love Matthew McConaughey said in one of his speeches a long time ago. He won an award. He said the reward is not in this trophy. The reward is not in the box office numbers. The reward itself is in the making of the movie. The trial and error that you have to go through, the emotional intelligence journey you have to go on in order to create something amazing. That takes it takes a pretty hardcore focus, right? And if you're gonna wake up every day and just dream about the future without actually doing something now, doing something to get toward it now, then you're never gonna get there. And so patience and urgency, they're intertwined very deeply. And so I want to grow Burn Boot Camp to 10,000 locations. That's my goal. And when I do that, I'm gonna buy a baseball team. It's gonna take a long time. There's a lot of, that's just like the stupid superficial goal. Like, but at the end of the day, what's really on my heart and really on my head is the impact that we get to make at each individual gym. So like, I'm not growing to 10,000 locations unless I go to Harrisburg today and rock it, and then wake up tomorrow and do the same thing over and over again. And if the reward becomes the actual hard work itself, well, then that's when you start to fall in love with being patient, because that patience, that long run mentality, that long-term mindset, that's going to serve you well. Too many people are sellers and not buyers, meaning they'll trade their core values in for a quick win. They'll trade their core values in for a quick buck. When we were first coming up, the believe it was the CEO at the time of Snap Fitness, the 24/7, personal access gym, like do-it-yourself access. Well, they wanted to buy the entire state. They wanted to buy the rights for Burn Boot Camp to the entire state of Minnesota. And I was 27, I believe, maybe 26. Yeah, it's maybe late, 27, I think. And we told them no. I mean, this was a high six, low seven-figure deal. That would have been real nice at the time. But I knew that I couldn't let my urgency of, that short-term fix, that seven-figure check, I knew I couldn't let that undermine the 10,000 unit goals that we had. And if I were to sell out an entire state that early, we didn't even know what we were doing then. Like, we did, but at the end of the day, compared to what we do now and know now, we didn't know much. And so to sell out an entire state, now I just can't even imagine. I couldn't imagine trading the urgency of that dollar for the patience in the long run. And so, just an example of, in my life, how I've had to actually deploy this, and not just in like a everyday kind of way. This was like a life-changing type of way. If you're able to say no to $1 million because you want to protect your goals in the long run, I think you're getting it right. If you're able to set down the food that is in your house that's not good for you, and you're able to hold that out, you're able to eat that Caesar salad instead of baking that extra batch of cookies, and you're able to set down the short-term satisfaction of really fulfilling that craving and that sweet tooth, and you're able to say, hey, my health is more important to me in 20 years than the next 20 minutes. So it doesn't really matter whether it's a $1 million deal, or you're talking about wanting to get rid of a poor sugar habit. You want to trade your I would say you never want to trade your short-term vision, or your long-term vision rather, for short-term satisfaction. So that's what I think about. Patience, urgency. There's another part to that that says, I call it the stars in the sand. There's another piece to that, kind of with patience comes the vision, and that's the stars. So it's your ability to keep your eyes on the stars, but also, which is your goal, which is your vision, but also simultaneously keep your feet on the sand. And there's something humbling about how would you say, having your feet in the sand, and not getting too up in the clouds, not getting too up in the stars. And you'll see that when there are individuals who have big vision but are also able to flex down and get granular and focus on the details, then they're able to find purpose in the everyday urgency, because they can see, I just don't focus on the star, and I'm not just always looking at the star. I know it's there. I can look back up at any time and I know it's going to be there. But I look down and say, okay, what are the problems today? What are the granular problems today that I can go tackle and take care of? And that's what I'm talking about, like finding meaning, finding purpose inside of like what you have to do today, no matter how mundane it is. Even if it's pushing paperwork, you get to find an opportunity to make pushing paperwork a very meaningful thing. When you language it, I just got to show up today and, do my job and just push this paperwork. It's just another paperwork. I'm dreading it. You get the pile stacking up on your desk. It's like, what if you languaged it that paperwork was going to be the thing that allowed you to live a life of fulfillment, that when you do the paperwork really, really well, people are going to notice. And when they notice, they're going to give you opportunity, and you believe in that and you have faith in it. And when they do give you opportunity, you take advantage of it. Or when they don't give you opportunity, you leave. You go somewhere else, and you You go be the best damn paper pusher you could possibly be, because I know how we do one thing is how we do everything, and we're constantly, that's what the gym is all about. It's like how you lift weights, your attitude towards strength day, how are you going to approach it? What are you going to do when you get there? You're just going to lift weights that suit you for the moment, or are you going to try to push yourself, right? And, excuse me, that was gross. I think I got allergies. We're flying like all around the freaking country. I woke up this morning with like a sore throat, and Morgan's like, dude, you don't never get sick. What's going on? I'm like, I feel fine. I think fine is probably the appropriate word. I don't feel great. But yeah, we've been traveling all over the place, and so part of like today for me, if I'm going back to my little metaphor here, it's like some days when you're in the grind, you're in the sand, it's like some days you're not even gonna feel like doing it. You're not even gonna feel good about it. You're gonna feel like you need to just lay down and stay in your bed, but we all know that that's never worked for anyone. So
now when you have moments of doubt, not necessarily doubt or down, when you're down, how do you keep that sight on the vision, on the long-term plan?
I think, so your question is, when you're down, how do you keep your head up?
Yes.
Right? It's like, well, having a vision in the first place is the antidote to everyday struggle, right? Because if there's some place in the future that I think is a desirable one, I always teach people, don't just have a vision of the future, have something that pulls you forward, and have something that pushes you from behind, but not just like in a bullet point sense, in the sense of having a story, telling yourself a story of a place specifically that you're going to be in the future that is that's enchanting for you, that's something that you would get really excited about if it actually came to fruition in your life, and not just kind of going half-ass with it. I'm talking about go all in. I'm talking about make a game plan in your head. Write down a story on a piece of paper of one day in the future where you and the people you love in your life will gather together to do what you love, kind of with who you love and where you love to do it on your own terms, because that's what a beautiful life is a life on our own terms. And this push motivation I'm talking about is, hey, what in the past has gone wrong, and what in the past, what story do you have that you could remind yourself of that's going to push you away from that being, from that environment, from that that potential state. A lot of us have this negative emotional, we live primarily by negative emotions because we live primarily by past experience, not future thought. Excuse me. All right, I'm good now. We live by past experience, not future thought, and we're anchored down by or rather handcuffed down by the past. And so you need that, but you don't need it to remind you of how shitty life was. You need it to remind you of where you don't want to be, and then you need this vision, this story I'm talking about in the future that you have to make up because the future hasn't happened yet. And like a heat-seeking missile, if you lock in on a story and on your vision, well, you're going to have a hell of a higher probability of getting to that than if you just are reaching that goal, than if you just kind of, put something out in the future. I always tell people, if you're in New York and you want to drive to California, you could probably get there. But if you wanted to go to Rodeo Drive and go to the Louis Vuitton on Rodeo Drive in Orange County somewhere, you're gonna need an address. You're gonna need to be specific. Or you'll just get there and then you'll be this wandering lost generality that just kind of floats around, and you'll be kind of where you want to be, but it wasn't a place that you designed, and it wasn't a place that you ultimately really wanted to be. And so, those two things, the push and pull motivation, are what really keeps me going. mine is, I just never, like, mine is always, my push motivation is always around anytime I think of, well, I even have this written down in a lot of different ways, but anytime I think of my childhood, just how rough it was, I always use that as motivation, like, because I never want my children to face that. And sometimes I'll have to really, it's hard to articulate because it's so emotionally powerful. I'll have to put myself back in those shoes of that 12-year-old kid sometimes and try to channel that anger and channel the emotion, the negative emotion, because I remember being so driven by that. I was so driven by that, and it's very powerful because I've actually experienced it before, you know what I mean? Like, if I come up with some vision of the future, it's not nearly as powerful as the experience of the past, because I've actually lived the past. Like, I know what it feels like deep in my body. I don't need to make up a story. But I'm telling you, that future, that vision, that we travel, we go all over the place, and we ask everybody, don't we? Mm-hmm. Who in here has goals? If I asked you to show me, who could actually show me your goals, who could actually write it down on a piece of paper and actually show me your goals, and guess how many people can do that? It's about 10% at best. Anywhere we go, maybe 10%. And so I'm like, holy moly, this is eye-opening, because how many thousands of years have people, back to the Greek days, Socrates was talking about visions and goals, and then Marcus Aurelius was talking about visions and goals, and then contemporarily you got Earl Nightingale and Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and every self-help personal development author you've ever heard about. They all say the key to life is setting goals. It's like, yeah, I know, we know. What's the gap? What's the difference? Well, maybe people don't want to set a goal that's too specific. Because if you set a goal that's really specific, you'll know exactly who you have to become in order to reach that goal. And I think oftentimes people are scared of who they have to become, what they have to do, what sacrifices they would have to make. So if you can live in this foggy, vague state, and you don't ever specify your goals, well, you never have to meet the man or the woman in the mirror. And I think that's probably it. The vision isn't right. That means the vision isn't right. It's not your purpose. It's not your true purpose. Because if it was your true purpose, you'd be willing to overcome yourself in order to reach it. You'd be willing to overcome yourself in order to reach your goal. So if you're not willing to be specific, that just means that the goal isn't powerful enough.
Now, did it take you time to reach that point of vision with Burn, or you kind of knew it off rip?
Did it take me time to reach the point where I had a particular story about, like, a particular vision that was really powerful?
Yeah, the 10,000 locations.
Yeah, well, I think goal setting and dreaming and vision and being a visionary, there's levels to it. Like, I'm an optimist, but I'm also like realist. I'm not gonna sit around and say, my goal is I want to be a 7'4" NBA center. And it's like, dude, you can wish in that hand all day long. You can wish in this one, you can shit in this one, and see which one fills up first. Because that wish is not gonna come. That's not gonna come to fruition. It's unrealistic. And so for me, 10,000 gyms, that was just unrealistic. I wasn't even thinking that way at the beginning. I wanted to do 5 locations in North Charlotte and be Charlotte's Fit Community Moms, and just have every family in Huntersville, Cornelius, Denver, Mooresville, like Davidson, just dominate that area. Well, I thought that we did our franchising documents with with a gentleman, a former VP of Stanley Steamer. His name is Dave. We call him Uncle Dave. What's up, Uncle Dave? Shout out. Well, he started a company called the Franchise Maker, and he helped us with it's called an FDD. If you're interested in franchising, you read the FDD, the financial disclosure document, and then you sign the franchise agreement once you've been awarded a territory, and that's a governing document of the FDD that governs the relationship between myself and you. And so Uncle Dave put these documents together, did a great job for us. He goes, well, Devan, well, buddy, doing 3 locations in your first year might be a real big win. You could get some magazine attention. The Franchise Times might call you if you did 3 gyms in the first year. Well, we did 200 in the first 18 months, and we were in the 99th percentile of any business that's come into the market since 2010. We were in the 99th percentile of growth, and that gave me a little boost to my desire. It lit even more fire. I think ambition is bred or created or manifest when you succeed. So it's like, set your goals small enough at first so that they seem attainable, and then apply the 3 times rule. Try to speed it up 3 times. So if I wanted to do, Uncle Dave said, Devan, Morgan, you guys do 3 or 5 in your first year, you're going to be on fire. So that's where my initial kind of goals came from. Well, that was kind of easy because we had 5 sublease gyms at the time, and we just flipped those into our brick and mortars. There we go, goal hit. So it's like, and here's a problem too, it's people don't think they can refresh their story or refresh their vision. It's like, once I set a goal and I go get it, I've gotten it, right? That's what else is there? Well, there's a podcast I did with a member in North Raleigh. Her name's Harriet. You guys can go back and watch it. But this was the trap that she fell in. Was she had a vision to see her daughter get married because her mother wasn't able to see her get married due to passing because of health complications, and so she had that goal, and she went out and she dominated that goal, and then she's already passed that goal in her life, and she's like, what's next? There was nothing else pulling her, so there was no motivation, there was no inspiration, and so she kept going kind of up and down the same 15 pounds, the same, getting like back into the same bad habits, because she had nothing enchanting pulling her forward anymore. Before, there was nothing that she wouldn't do in order to see her daughter get married, and then once she saw that, it's like, wah wah, like the fire goes out. You reach room temperature, and you kind of just stay there and you chill there. So, for what it's worth, you set your goals into that, in that stretch zone area where there's a goal you can hit, right? But that's not even really the vision. The vision is that if I did hit this, like if I were able to become the person that could do the things, that could develop the character, that could become the leader in order to reach this goal, that would be really exciting. And I believe that I can do it. You got to believe that you can do it. That's a prerequisite. And so check yourself. Most of you aren't setting a goal at all. You know you're supposed to, but you won't. And even if I say you won't, you're still not going to after this. I bet you don't. Challenge yourself. I'll challenge you to do it, and you still won't do it. And I hope that you're not going to be the person that hears that and gets defensive, because if you are, then you're probably the person that's scared of their own shadow. You're scared of setting your own goals. You're scared of putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, and then going to approach every day with a relentless attitude of I'm going to reach this damn goal, regardless of what it takes. And then some of you, I hope, have been told to set goals your whole life. You haven't done it, and this will be, and you might be the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people out of 100 that listen and really take me seriously You'll start seeing momentum in your life. If you start locking in, like that heat-seeking missile I talked about, you lock in on a vision of the future. We have this thing in our prefrontal cortex called the RAS, the reticular activating system. And it will lock on to what you want in the future. This is a piece of the brain that allows us to narrow in on what is important to us and render everything else around us unimportant. I mean, think about how much stimulus that we have on a daily basis. Like even right now, as I'm driving to Harrisburg and we're doing this podcast, there is 1,000 stimulants every second that are different. It's like if I don't have my focus down, right? If I don't have my vision, my focus down, then my reticular activating system, this mechanism of the brain, it doesn't activate, and you won't find it. You know, seek and you shall find. You know, it's a tangent to this conversation. It says that everybody has their ideal pathway. Everybody has their blueprint. Everybody has how their life is supposed to be. And then you have your current circumstances, where you're at right now. And your happiness, your fulfillment is the relationship between the blueprint that you have for yourself and your current life circumstances. Where were you supposed to be versus where are you at now? People get unhappy when they don't feel like the life they're leading is a life they've designed. Think about that. Where are you at right now? What's your blueprint? What's your path? What are the schematics for your life? What are the steps? Where were you supposed to be right now? And are you there? Well, if you're not, and you're discontent or even depressed, well, then you do two things. One of two things. You've got to change the blueprint, or you have to change the life conditions to match the blueprint. That's it. How do you change the circumstances of your life? That's a very easy answer. That would be setting the standards higher. Just set your standards higher. Yeah, it's easy to say, very hard to do. But how do you set your standards higher? Become a no matter what person, you know? Like, don't negotiate with yourself. Do you have a family philosophy? Do you have core values? If you don't have these two things, then you don't have a standard for your life because you don't know how to say yes or how to say no to things. You know, my core values, they navigate my life. They're how I say yes, they're how I say no to things. And if you don't have those, well, then you don't really have a standard because there's nothing for you to match up against. The only other answer would be that your standard would be somebody else's standard that was set for you. Your dad's standard, your teacher's standard, your coach, your grandpa, your granny, whoever raised you, whoever your university professor was. They're setting your standards for you if you haven't set your standards for yourself. And setting your standards is simply just about defining your core values and defining a mission statement for your life. Think about your life as very much like a business. Companies don't grow unless they have a mission. Companies don't grow unless they have value, unless they have focus. Or you can change your blueprint, right? This is often necessary. Think about somebody who, let's just say, was an athlete and then through some type of tragic accident loses the ability to run, jump, and sprint. Okay, if you're going to be a super miserable person unless you change the blueprint. You know, if you were supposed to be like a multi-millionaire at age 29 and you weren't, Well, then you got to change your blueprint. And you've got to readjust the story that I'm talking about and realign to some expectations of yourself that are empowering, that are fulfilling. So, and through this whole process, guilt and doubt and shame, it's all going to creep in. It's not you. It's not your problems. That's the problems. That's the world, the universe, the thoughts, the mechanisms that be trying to impose themselves onto you. And you have an opportunity to decide to make choices of between what you listen to and what you don't listen to, what philosophies shape your life versus what philosophies don't. Is the standards that were set for you by somebody else, are those your standards, or are they somebody else's? And these are the choices that we get to have every day. We get to make these choices every day. They get to make up really our quality of life. I think the quality of the decisions that we make, the choices that we make, ultimately between that and communication, ultimately decide how the quality of life that we have, our choices and our communication around those choices. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
A little long-winded, but
That was good.
give me one more quick one because we're almost there.
All right.
3.8 miles.
Now, say I'm a person that sees that I need to change up my lifestyle, but there are some hard decisions that I have to make. I'm not ready to make that jump. What are some things that I can do to help me get in that correct direction? Is it more of a mental thing or physical thing?
So you're asking you need to make some lifestyle changes.
Yep.
But you're putting it off because
I'm comfortable or scared.
you're comfortable or scared.
Yep.
Well, living by comfort or living by fear, I would say comfort is certainty would be the universal human need of comfort. Not everyone needs to be comfortable, but everybody needs some level of certainty in their lives. And then when you say scared, what you I think really mean is the primary emotion of fear. A lot of times, what works for me in these situations is I break things. I use an engineering thought process, a thought process that engineers use to build stuff. It's called first principles thinking. And so if you were to take like a vehicle, like a car, and you were to strip down that car down to its kind of barest bones, strip every single part down to the most raw ingredient, that's kind of what I would do here. Is I would say I would strip that fear down and say, what am I scared of? What is fearful? Am I actually fearful, or is somebody else telling me that I'm fearful? Do I even need certainty? What's the opposite of certainty? Oh, uncertainty. How much do I value that? It's called emotional intelligence. Your ability to question your own emotions and really get to it's a root cause, finding the answers, breaking that emotion down to its smallest parts by asking these questions. It just allows you to lay everything out and just look at it, right? And if you're an engineer, you're doing it and you can physically see the parts. But if you're talking about dissecting yourself emotionally, answering questions is the metaphor that I'm talking about. So it's like, what is fear? What does fear mean to me? Am I a fearful person? Who told me I was a fearful person? It's just questioning. It's questioning all these emotions that you have and starting there and just getting to a place where out of the universal human needs, you are finding, calculating which one of those and what amount of those universal human needs is your personality. Know thyself. And I think you probably ask that question a lot of times. Do you ask that question for you?
Yeah, I do now, after talking to you all the time.
Well, I think that's a great question to ask yourself. Why can't I make changes that in my head that I really want to change?
Yeah.
Well, my first question would be, am I growing? Right? Because I can have this. It goes back to patience and urgency. Am I growing? Like, yeah, I can have this desire, but am I deploying patience against it? Like, am I urgently waking up every day and growing toward it? And if the answer is yes, well, progress is happiness. And that Drake line, want everything, can't have everything. You can't just say, hey, I want to do all this stuff, and then magically it happens. And so my question back to you would be, are you progressing? Are you really fearful? Have you asked yourself, what level of certainty and uncertainty do you need? And if you're growing, then I think the answer is, if you're growing, that means you're identifying the gaps because you're asking the right questions, and you are working on a daily basis to close the gaps. If you're closing gaps, you're going to be progressing, and if you're progressing, then you're going to be happy, or at least live by a primary emotion that's positive rather than a primary emotion that's negative. So, and then you go back to urgency. Am I attacking this, or am I just letting this same question bother me in the back of my mind? And sometimes it just takes time. It takes time to figure out life. I mean, you're 24, right?
Yep. How long did that take you to learn that whole entire thought process of questioning your thoughts?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I started living, so for me, primarily, my emotions have always been positive. And the reason they've been positive is because when I was a kid, when I was 12, I had, there was no other choice. It was either following my parents' footsteps and just live in negative emotion all the time, or have my own head on my shoulders. That's the way that I used to language it. In my, when I was 12, 13, 14, I was like, I have my own head on my shoulders. Like, people used to tell me, you know what, Devan, from where you come from, they used to caveat, from where you come from, you've got a really good head on your shoulders. And so I used to live primarily by positive emotion, just because negative emotion was very hard. It was very, I can remember times when I would be screaming into my pillow, because my mom and dad were fist fighting each other upstairs, and there's nothing I could do about it. And so I've had this attitude, I think, for a long time. But I understand that not many people have to grow up and be a man when they're 12, which I'm ultimately grateful for. I think poverty for me is my superpower. The disadvantages were ultimately my greatest advantages. And so, but I didn't know how to language it until I was older, until I started understanding like communication and emotional intelligence. Back then, I didn't know what those words meant, but I was always a little more emotionally intelligent, I think, than the average, early teenager, just because of the nature of what I had to go through. And so that was a gift. That's why I say, I thank my mother, I thank my father. I have so much gratitude for the way that I grew up, because it made me who I am today. And I learned how to navigate the world as a teenager emotionally. And, I've got contemporaries now in business that are playing against me, and I'm kicking their ass left and right because the pandemic was the kill shot for them. Their emotional kill shot. They were done. They had no idea what to do. So yeah, it doesn't matter how long it took me. It doesn't matter how long it takes you. Time is arbitrary. The emotional intelligence journey, the discovery of self-awareness, that's to me is an everyday thing, and you've got to just start working on it today. Take it one step at a time. That's something you can really be urgent on a daily basis on discovering who you actually are.
Nice.
Okay, I'm getting lost now. So I've turned around twice. So see you guys. Thanks for hanging with me. Make sure that you definitely rate and review the Burn Bootcamp podcast. And we love you guys. 2 claps on 2, 1, 2.